So much for that introduction, Anita. I'm very happy to be here with you all today. And the focus of my talk is going to be on the connection between self-worth and relationships, and focusing in on romantic relationships. For me, my sort of struggles with self-worth often centered around romantic relationships, because that was a place that I tried to find my sense of self-worth and my worthiness. And so we thought that that would be a great thing for me to talk with you all about today. So I'm going to dive in. My plan is to talk for about 30 minutes or so, I think is what we planned. And then we'll have a lot of time for question and answer. So looking forward to talking with you all about this today, and then also hearing all of your questions and answering all your questions a little bit later. So I think many of us look to romantic relationships to give us the sense that we're worthy. And yet, when we feel unworthy, we are less likely to find and build healthy relationships. So, I'm going to share my own story, as well as some practical strategies that you all can use to connect to your self worth and improve your relationships. Because what I have found in my own life, and also in the couples therapy I do, is that when we don't feel worthy, we struggle to have healthy relationships. So this hopefully will be applicable and helpful for those of you who are single and searching for a relationship, as well as those of you who are in a relationship and potentially finding that there are challenges coming up in the relationship because it's not giving you the sense that you were worthy in the way that you hoped. So my own story of struggling with low self-worth and romantic relationships began in college. And my first serious boyfriend was basically somebody who was great, but wasn't emotionally available. So we went to two different colleges that were about an hour apart from each other. And I thought that would work great, right? We weren't super far away. We could see each other. But turns out he was not very interested in making time to see me. I didn't have a car. He did. I think he saw me once in the quarter, maybe twice, and basically didn't really feel like making time to see me. And at the time, I took this very personally. I thought this was because I was unlovable, because it was my fault. When really, I think it was because he was a 20-year-old guy in college who wanted to have fun and didn't particularly want to be in a serious relationship. But for me, it felt very personal. It felt like there is something wrong with me, and there's something that makes me unworthy of his time and his love. And so I was pretty heartbroken when he didn't want to spend time with me, and when he eventually broke up with me for seemingly no reason at all. I wasn't really clear on why he broke up with me. And I was a little bit depressed for a few months of my freshman year of college, when I was sort of like, why did he break up with me? I must be unlovable. I was just really in a bad state. And at some point, we got back together, and then it sort of faded out. But that was really just sort of the beginning of me pursuing relationships with people who were unavailable, with people who were not really wanting to be in relationship with me. And this created a pattern of me trying to do everything I could to get a guy to like me, and then constantly worrying about whether they really liked or loved me. And this was exhausting. It continued through my late 20s. And all of this relationship anxiety really confirmed my fear that I was unlovable and that I was unworthy of love. And my attempts to find worthiness in these relationships just didn't work. It wasn't working. It did not work. The other thing that happened was that my desperation to use romantic relationships to affirm that I was worthy caused me to be anxious in my relationships, and made it difficult for me to accept the love that partners offered me. So even when a partner did truly like or love me, I would sort of erode the positive connection in the relationship by questioning it, right? Sort of, well, do you really like me? And looking for evidence that maybe it wasn't true that someone liked or loved me. And my achievement approach to earning a partner's love really also kept me from being my full authentic self in relationships, right? So it's this sort of irony is that, I did well academically. And so I thought, I don't think really consciously, but like, okay, why don't I just act the way I act academically? Why don't I just act that way? In relationships, right? So we try to do all the things, check all the boxes. Okay, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, maybe if I act this way, maybe if I act that way, right? All of these trying to prove my worth, trying to prove that I was lovable, right? That's where my energy went. But then I ended up showing up inauthentically, not fully as myself, which meant that any love that was offered, I would then sort of question, well, is that really love for me or is it love for the person I'm trying to be? And it creates this sort of vicious cycle. There's an Alicia Keys song called Gramercy Park, which I think really captures this cycle and this dynamic very well. And the lyrics of the chorus are, I've been trying to be everything I think you want me to be. I've been doing all the things that I think you want to see. I've been trying to fulfill you with your every need. Now you've fallen for a person that's not even me, right? So we can get so caught up in trying to prove our worth, trying to prove that we are lovable, that we become someone that we're not in relationship, right? And that we realize the person, we're trying to make fall in love with us has fallen in love with someone who is not us because we thought that who we were wasn't worthy enough, right? To be our full selves and to be loved. So that was another cycle that I got caught up in. The other piece of this for me was that I was more attracted to people who affirmed my fears that I was unlovable than I was attracted to people who treated me as though I was worthy. So when I finally did end up in a relationship with a guy who was truly interested in me, I was bored. Right. So I didn't know, right? I see some of the laughs, right? Like it's kind of not ironic, right? And maybe some of you all have experienced this, right? So, you know, because I didn't know how to relax and just enjoy a relationship, right? Or how to just let myself be loved. I didn't know how to just be in a relationship without trying to achieve in a relationship, without trying to prove my worth. When someone just showed up and was like, "Hey, you're wonderful." I was like, "What? Oh, this is boring. I don't have anything to chase after. I don't have anything to I don't have to prove myself, right?" And so I couldn't enjoy it. And so all of these sort of cycles are set off by us not feeling worthy. And my training as a clinical psychologist has taught me about basically sort of these two concepts of confirmation bias and sort of cognitive dissonance, right? So, confirmation bias means that we look for evidence to confirm what we believe is true. So, if you believe that you are unworthy or unlovable, you will look for evidence to confirm that, right? Oh, they didn't call me back. They didn't text me back right away. Oh, they don't want to hang out this Friday night. Oh, blah, 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 blah. They said a critical, right? Evidence to confirm that I am unworthy, right? We look for and we hold on to that evidence. And then we also discount the other part of confirmation bias is that we discount evidence that we are worthy and lovable. Oh, they brought you flowers. Well, they were just being nice. Well, they took you out to dinner that one time. Oh, well, I asked them to do that and it doesn't really count. They gave you a compliment. Oh, well, I told them I like compliments, so it doesn't really, right? So then you start discounting the evidence that they love you and you keep the evidence that they don't, right? And then you create a story that you're unlovable, that no one loves you, that you're not worthy. And look at this partner and they don't love you and they're not worthy, and et cetera, right? I'm seeing your comments in the chat. I'm glad you understand what I'm talking about, right? The other piece of this is the cognitive dissonance piece, which is that when we believe we're unlovable or unworthy, and someone treats us as though we are lovable and worthy, it doesn't fit with how we see ourselves. So that means either we're wrong or they're wrong. And often what we do is we say, they must be wrong. I know I'm not lovable, so they must be wrong. They don't really know me. If they really knew me, they wouldn't treat me well. I don't know if you all have ever had a friend or a family member or a loved one who was depressed or really harsh and self critical with themselves. And no matter what you say, no matter what you tell them, it just does not stick or sink in. You can say, I love you. You're so wonderful. You offer so much. You're great. And yet they say, that's not true, right? They brush it off, right? And we know how frustrating that is when we try to offer affirmation, right, to someone else and they say, oh, that's not true, I don't believe you, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, come on, like, I'm not being just nice, I believe it. But we do the same things, right? We brush off the affirmations, the compliments, the evidence that we are worthy, the evidence that we are lovable, right? And that just keeps us stuck feeling unworthy. So I'm seeing the comments in the chat, which I so appreciate. And, I wonder if this resonates with you. So maybe take a deep breath. I've said a lot so far. I tend to talk kind of fast. I'm going to try to slow myself down a little bit. But, just think for a moment about your own relationship patterns and how they may have reflected some of these patterns, these feelings of unconditional of unworthiness rather. So my fear that I was unworthy and unlovable came to a head when I was in a relationship with a great guy, another great guy, who could not and did not fall in love with me during our 2-year relationship. So I faced my ultimate fear of being unlovable. And it was through that experience that I realized that I was lovable. Yes, ouch is right. It was tough. It was not an easy experience. I cried a lot. And I spent hours talking about it with my girlfriends and other friends and trying to figure out what was the deal. But eventually, I came to understand that my boyfriend at the time, him not falling in love with me, wasn't because I was unlovable. It was because he had a limited capacity to love. And as painful as that experience was for me, it freed me from my relationship anxiety and the desperation I felt to use relationships to prove that I was worthy of love. Sometimes facing our worst fears is exactly what we need to overcome them. It was through letting go of this relationship and affirming for myself that I am lovable and worthy of being loved that I was able to connect to my unconditional self-worth on a deeper level. This experience taught me that I no longer needed to search outside of myself for a partner to complete me and make me worthy. And that affirming that I was lovable and worthy for myself marked a powerful transition in my journey to unconditional self worth. So I wonder if you can relate to my story. Have you ever tried to use romantic relationships to help yourself feel worthy? Have you been crushed when someone didn't choose you for love or a relationship? Have you started relationships with a lot of hope that this would finally help you to feel worthy and lovable, only to realize that you still feel empty inside after the initial rush of infatuation wears off? If you've experienced any of these things, I want you to know that you're not alone. And that's part of the reason why I'm sharing my story with you, because I think so often we can feel like we are the only ones and like something is wrong with us on a deep level, that we are struggling in this way. And the reality is that it's really common. It's very common. And I think the way that we get out of the shame and the fear around this is by talking about it, and is by connecting to other people and understanding that we're not alone in these fears. And that's when we can start to say, you know what, maybe this isn't true. Maybe my fear that I'm unlovable, maybe my belief that I'm unworthy isn't true, because look at this other person. They're lovable, they're wonderful. And if they believe that and that's not true about them, maybe it's not true about me either. So, what I want you to take away from my story and reflecting on your own experience is that using romantic relationships to prove that we are worthy just doesn't work. It may work for a short period of time when we are high on love. But eventually, our unaddressed feelings of unworthiness will reemerge, and we may even blame our partners for not filling the void of self-worth that we feel. So the real way out of this exhausting cycle of seeking relationships to complete us, only to be left feeling incomplete, is to connect to our unconditional self-worth. I believe that you are worthy, no matter what you have done or what you have gone through. You just need to tap into this true self of your self worth, source of your self worth. Unconditional self worth is the foundation for healthy relationships, because when we know we are worthy, we are much less likely to settle for harmful or toxic relationships. When we know we are worthy, we show up as full, complete people in our relationships, and we are able to build healthy partnerships that don't fall into the trap of codependence, which often emerges when we feel unworthy and we try to use someone else to complete ourselves. When we know we are worthy, we set healthy boundaries in our relationships and maintain friendships and other interests outside of our relationships. Our romantic relationships don't become our whole world and sense of purpose and sense of being when we know we're worthy. And the reality is that when we put everything into our romantic relationships, when everything is based on that, it's stressful. It puts too much pressure on the relationship, and no relationship can function long term in a healthy way with that dynamic. And so when we have a balance, then we have healthier relationships. So for me, Knowing my unconditional self-worth prepared me to build the healthy relationship I have with my fiance. By the time we met, I was no longer desperately searching for a partner to complete me. I wanted a serious relationship because the idea of building a life with a partner felt exciting and wonderful, but I was also already happy and fulfilled in my life and was not looking for someone to complete me. Knowing the true source of my worth helped me to enter into my current relationship with a sense of calm and confidence. I liked my fiance a lot from the beginning, but I didn't feel like he would be my savior from loneliness. I was excited to spend time with him, but I didn't feel desperately sad or disappointed when we weren't together. All of these things helped me to enter our relationship from a place that made the relationship we have today, which is quite healthy, possible. I know that I wouldn't have been ready for this relationship several years before, and I might have ruined it with my anxiety. And this is what I want for you. I want you to have healthy and fulfilling relationships, romantic or otherwise, where you're grounded in knowing that you are worthy and that you can bring your full and complete self to the relationship without searching for someone to complete or fix you. Even if you're already in a romantic relationship, the practices I'm going to share in a moment will be helpful for you. As I mentioned before, I do couples therapy. And one of the issues that often emerges is that when one or both partners feel unworthy or unlovable, this manifests as problems in the relationship. So it's never too late to start working on this and to start connecting to your unconditional self worth. So, with that, I'd like to share two practices with you. And these will support you on your journey of cultivating unconditional self worth so that you can have healthy relationships in the way that you desire. So, the first practice is to engage in self love. One of my favorite writers is Bell Hooks, and she has a quote which says this: one of the best guides for how to be self loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming about receiving from others. There was a time when I felt lousy about my over 40 body, saw myself as too fat, too this or too that. Yet I fantasized about finding a lover who would give me the gift of being loved as I am. It's silly, isn't it? That I would dream of someone else offering me the acceptance and affirmation I was withholding from myself. This was a moment when the maxim, you can never love anyone if you are unable to love yourself, made clear sense. And I add, do not expect to receive the love from who someone else you do not give to yourself. So that's the end of her quote. And so I think this is a great guide for how to engage in self love. We can start by giving ourselves the love that we long to receive from a partner. You could indulge yourself with a delicious meal, make a nice, relaxing bath with beautifully scented candles. You could make time to do things you enjoy, like reading, dancing, cooking, going for walks, writing. You could buy yourself flowers. You could write yourself a love letter. This is just a list of ideas to get your mind thinking about how could you show yourself some love. I know for me, I used to think, well, I'll go on that trip when I have a partner, or I'll go out to that place for dinner when I have a partner. And I encourage you to do the things you want to do for yourself now, to offer yourself the love, the time, the attention, and the care now, because that is what will help you to feel grounded in your worth. So when we engage in self-love, we are communicating to ourselves that we are worthy of love and care right now. not because we've achieved something, not because we need to be different, but because of who we are at this moment. Self love also helps us to feel calm and centered because we don't feel the need to desperately seek love outside of ourselves. And when we show ourselves love, we don't feel like we need to wait to find a partner to live the life we most desire. So often when we're desperate and we're waiting, we are, that's not usually what people are attracted to, right? When you think of who you're attracted to, you're usually attracted to people who are confident, self assured, have great things in their lives, and aren't looking for someone to sort of fill a void, but are looking for someone to have a wonderful life with. And that's what we want to set ourselves up to be. And so when we engage in self love, when we love ourselves now, we are ultimately more attractive and more ready to be in a loving partnership. And the second practice I want to offer to help you connect to your self worth is to be compassionate with yourself. So when we feel stressed or overwhelmed by the demands of life, or when we make a mistake, or maybe when we're struggling in the midst of relationship anxiety, like what I've described to you, it can be really easy to get harsh and self critical, which only makes us feel worse. And we often hope that a partner will treat us with kindness and compassion. And that is wonderful, right? And we can do that for ourselves. So, self compassion involves paying attention to our feelings and our emotions. It involves being mindful of ourselves and our experiences and giving ourselves space to feel whatever we feel. Remembering that our challenges and struggles are normal and human, and being kind to ourselves in the midst of all of that. And so, what I'd love to do right now is actually guide you all through a very brief self compassion meditation. So, we'll slow down for a minute. And if you're in a space where you can close your eyes, that would be great. Maybe put aside anything that you might have in your hands, get in a comfortable position, and just start by taking a few slow, deep breaths. Really notice the breath flowing in and out of your lungs. Notice how your body is feeling in this moment. Notice that you're supported by the chair or wherever you're sitting. And just take a moment to reflect on what's come up for you emotionally during this talk. What memories of past challenges in relationships have come to the surface? What current challenges are feeling particularly present right now? Just notice any feelings associated with those things. Maybe sadness, anxiety, embarrassment or shame, frustration, peace, joy, whatever is coming up for you. Just notice it and notice where it's showing up in your body. You might do a quick scan of your body, starting at your head and moving downward. Just notice any physical sensations in your head, neck, throat, chest, back, abdomen, arms, legs, hands, and feet. And wherever you're feeling any emotion, see if you can breathe into that space and make some room around whatever is here right now, knowing that whatever has shown up is okay. Seeing if you can allow it and make room for it. And then I want you to know that whatever struggles you've experienced with self-worth and in relationships, that is a common part of being human, that you are not alone in these struggles, and that the feelings you're feeling tell you some valuable information, that your desire to be loved and cared for means that you value relationships, that you value connection, and that is a healthy thing. And lastly, I'd love for you to offer yourself some kindness. Maybe place a hand over your chest and offer yourself some care and comfort for what you're experiencing in this moment, or maybe what you've experienced in the past. See if you can send yourself some love and maybe say something kind and encouraging to yourself, like, I am lovable and worthy of love. I am courageous and willing to continue to be vulnerable and show up in my relationships. I am worthy and wonderful even when I make mistakes. I deserve love, care, and kindness. I am learning and growing every day. Whatever else might feel encouraging to you in this moment. Then take a few more deep breaths. Notice again what your body is feeling like in this moment. Maybe notice any changes you feel from now compared to the beginning of this exercise. You can notice any sounds that you hear. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and look around the room you're in and notice what you see. So, as I wrap up here, I'd love to see in the chat what that exercise of self compassion meditation was like for you. And I hope that these practices of self love and self compassion will support you on your journey to connecting with your unconditional self worth and will give you a strong foundation for healthy and loving relationships. I know it can be hard to hear that self worth is a foundation for healthy relationships. And I want you to know that connecting to your self worth is a journey, right? So it's not as though you have to have perfect self worth before you have any healthy relationships, but that these things can happen concurrently. And I hope my story has given you some inspiration that even if you struggle like I did, that there is hope, right? And that you can connect to your unconditional self worth and have really helpful relationships. know that actively engaging in these practices will support you along your journey and will help you not only have loving relationships, but also to have a wonderful and amazing life. And I really hope that this talk and all of the workshops and the talks that you'll be attending as part of the Self Worth Awareness Week will support you with that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adia. This was, somebody says, really heartwarming and resonated with so many of us, I am sure. And really cannot thank you enough for taking the time. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we will again do it, record the question.
Before
Yeah.
Yeah, but just before you stop the recording, can I share? I do have a slide that I just wanted to
Ah,
share so that people know how to get in contact with me. So I'm sharing that now, just so that if people, I know there's some people who will be watching afterwards, but I'd love for you all to connect with me. I have a website, dradiagooden.com. You can email me if you have questions. Um, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I also have a free ebook on 4 practices to overcome low self-worth that you can get at this URL. Also, if you go to my website, there'll be a pop-up that allows you to sign up for the ebook. And I also have a podcast coming out starting next week called Unconditionally Worthy. So look out for that. It'll be sort of wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, all of those places, Google. So I'd love to connect. I'd love for you to reach out to me after this. So I just wanted to share that briefly, and then I'll let you take it away,
now,
Anita.
this is brilliant. And in fact, I will add here as well that much of the information you just shared is also on the website, on your profile. If you go into the full bio of Dr. Adia, you will find a lot of the resources. I think pretty much all of them are there. And I can only attest because I subscribe to your newsletter and your free ebook, and it's really a wonderful complement to everything that we're doing here at the Self-Worth Safari. So I strongly encourage you to do that. And it's all free, my goodness. What more do we want? So